And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
What's up, everybody? DJ Bucky here with Move the Sticks. And, man, Bucky, we have got so much ground to cover today. We got free agency. We've got the draft. We've got still some combine stuff to recap. But first of all, this is video number 100.
How about that? Celebration.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, if you've missed any of the previous 99 videos, you can check them out on YouTube. Go to the NFL channel, pump in Move the Sticks. You can see all of our stuff here. But, Buck, today we got Calvin Johnson and Peyton Manning, retired. We've got our top 50 list, some updates. Post-combine we're going to get to. And we're going to try and compare like the pro day versus the combine and kind of balancing that in the evaluation process.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover. And the retirements, some surprising. The Calvin Johnson thing I'm a little surprised at. Peyton Manning, I think, was expected. But two guys who are icons in our sport have decided to walk away and move on to other things.
Yeah, I use the term freak for Calvin Johnson. And the freak word, I tweeted out, it gets overused, but with Calvin, it's like that's the only way to describe him. And we'll jump into him in just a second. And then Peyton Manning, one of the things I want to get to is just some scouting takeaways that we've learned from Peyton Manning, not only evaluating him specifically, but the quarterback position. You go back and look at that draft with Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. There's some lessons to be learned there we can dig into.
A lot of lessons to be learned from watching Peyton Manning's career, his growth, the way he kind of matured into one of the best players in the league at that position. He has all the records, and it's little to do about the physical part. It's more to do about the mental and intangibles that we can learn from watching Peyton Manning.
All right, so we'll dig into that in just a little bit. Also, the Raiders already active in free agency. We'll touch on that, and we'll look at some teams that are just a few pieces away, some teams right on the doorstep of winning a championship, and we're going to try and find those couple pieces for them.
We're going to try and help them out.
We're trying to get them a trophy.
We're going to put on the scouting hat on, and we're going to help them out.
We're going to try and get them a trophy. So let's jump in, though, real quick. Right off the top here, Calvin Johnson announced that, or I guess the Lions announced he'd sent in his retirement papers. So Calvin Johnson's career comes to a close, Buck. And, man, when you look at the numbers that he put up, forget like the physical abilities, the numbers stack up pretty favorably over time when you just see, across the board, the receiving yards, the receiving touchdowns, all the way down. Since 2007, there's been nobody better.
Nah, nobody better. You're looking at he's first in receiving yards, first in receiving touchdowns, 46 100-yard games, which is first, and 105 25-plus yard receptions. That's remarkable production for a guy that was the number one receiver, and for a large part of his career, didn't play with necessarily a dominant guy on the other side. Despite facing double teams and sometimes triple teams, he was still able to dominate the game on his side. Says a lot about his talent and his freakish abilities that you alluded to.
Yeah, you talk about a red zone target. I mean, he is the perfect red zone target. When you're looking at somebody, when you go down there, you know the play's coming, you can't do anything about it. That's my definition of a number one wide receiver. I've said it before, but third down when everybody knows the ball's coming your way, and down in the red zone when everybody knows the ball's coming your way, and they can't do anything about it. That, to me, tells you you've got a number one wide receiver, and that's basically a perfect way to describe Calvin Johnson. We know where it's going. You can't do anything about it.
Can't do anything about it, but that is the perfect way to describe a number one receiver. The number one receiver to me is the guy that can anchor the passing game, regardless of what people are throwing at them, double teams, rolling coverage, brackets, they still find a way to have an impact on the game. We've seen that throughout his career. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. The fact that he was able to put up so much kind of production, particularly down in the red zone, facing all kinds of coverage, speaks volumes about his ability to get open and to be one of the dominant players in the modern era.
Before we go back to his evaluation process when he's coming out, let's just kind of focus in on that one special year he had. When you look at 2012 and these numbers, you want to talk about numbers. How about these? 122 receptions, 1,964 yards, just missed that 2,000-yard mark, 11 100-yard games that year, Buck.
Crazy. Crazy to see a wide receiver dominate the game on the perimeter like that, to have that kind of impact, to do it when everyone knew that Matt Stafford was going to 81 and they were going to force feed him. 11 100-yard games, the model of consistency on the outside. That's what I expect to see from a number one receiver. Almost reaching the 2,000-yard mark is unbelievable to think about. Some of the guys, Jerry Rice and Randy Moss, and those guys have never been able to get close to touching that mark. I mean, it's just unbelievable that he was able to do it. And he only had 5 touchdowns that year.
That's pretty crazy.
So he is basically leading you down into the scoring zone, but then someone else is cashing in. uncommon to see that kind of production in terms of yards with so few touchdowns.
And he had other years where he had big touchdown totals. But to me, when I remember him coming out of college and going and watching him play, first of all, I use that word freaky. He just was so freaky with his size, and people don't realize he's 240 pounds. With his ability to control himself, to be able to control in and out of breaks, that's such a big man, and be able to set up routes. I mean, he was running routes like a 5'10", 5'11" receiver, except he's 6'5", 240 pounds when you study him in college.
When you have that kind of size and you run in the 4.3 range.
Low 4.3.
I mean, being able to run that fast, to be a vertical stretch guy where you can take the top off the defense, but also you're huge when you have the ability to expand the strike zone over the middle of the field. You are a dominant target in the red zone. You just don't find guys like that. And I really feel like Calvin Johnson's success kind of made the big receiver in vogue. Everyone wanted a big-bodied guy, a guy that could post up, a guy that could win those jump balls, those 50-50 balls like Calvin Johnson could. And so we're seeing the wide receiver position change, and a large part due to his contributions, also Randy Moss and some of the other big guys. But we didn't see many 6'5", 240-pounders playing wide receiver in the National Football League prior to Calvin Johnson jumping in.
And before we get to where he ranks all time here, Buck, one thing I don't know that people really appreciate just how good of a dude Calvin Johnson was and how liked he was inside that locker room. He came out before him. Remember, this was a diva era for wide receivers. You had T.O., you had Ocho Cinco. That's where it was headed. Then he came in and kind of changed the narrative of the position. And just give you an idea that, I had a lot of friends on that coaching staff there. They would have offensive line get-togethers. The only person outside the offensive line that would come to every single one was Calvin Johnson. He was like an honorary member of that club. I mean, they used to go over to teammates' houses. They'd be out in the street, shooting water balloons up in the air with the neighborhood kids, and there's Calvin Johnson out there doing it. I mean, he's just a good, humble dude.
Humble dude. I had the opportunity to meet him. I want to say at Super Bowl 42-ish, maybe Super Bowl 42 or 43. Had a chance to meet him, talk to him. Very nice guy, a guy who had his head on straight. He was humble despite the fanfare. He is one of the best guys when you talk about guys around, guys that you can emulate, guys that young guys should point to. He is certainly a guy that I would encourage high school guys to model themselves after in terms of his ability to just handle it all without having a diva-like attitude.
Yeah, no question. Very unique. All right, when we look at top all-time, I have a tough time going back and ranking guys all-time because I can only go back so far. I didn't see the guys play way back in the day.
Oh, you didn't see Don Maynard?
I didn't see Paul Warfield. I got to work with Paul Warfield. He's an unbelievable dude, but I didn't get a chance to see Paul play. So I have a tough time saying all-time. I just go back to since I've been doing it. I started in 2003. And I can go back to when I was watching, when I was a little bit younger. I think it obviously starts to me with Jerry Rice and then Randy Moss. I think those are the two guys within the last, quarter century, you'd probably say. And I think after those two, I think Calvin Johnson kind of starts getting in the mix there. You can make a strong case for him being number 3 behind those two.
It's funny because, I think this is a debate that is going to kind of captivate us over the next couple of years with so many of these wide receivers vying for a spot in the Hall of Fame. I actually have Jerry Rice, then Terrell Owens, then Randy Moss. I think it's all semantics.
So you got T.O. over Randy Moss.
I do, and I think some of semantics depends on what you like. I mean, I feel like T.O. was a dominant player from beginning to end. Randy Moss, that Oakland phase and the Tennessee phase just kind of stands out to me. But both guys are dominant. Both guys are Hall of Fame worthy. I believe Calvin Johnson falls under that tier, but he's definitely in the conversation. I think you'd be hard-pressed if you had the conversation of who would you rather have, a Marvin Harrison or a Calvin Johnson. You could have that debate, and I believe a lot of people would side with Calvin Johnson because of the physical dominance that he has on the perimeter.
No question. He's definitely in that list of players. It's pretty impressive company. All right, that wasn't the only guy to retire, high-profile player.
No.
Even higher profile, Peyton Manning decided to hang it up. First of all, not surprised by that, were you?
No, I wasn't surprised. Anyone who watched him last year knew that the end was coming and coming quickly. I will give him credit for being able to check his ego at the door to help Denver make that Super Bowl run. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. He was able to kind of morph into a game manager, which has to be hard for a guy who has nearly all of the passing records in the National Football League. His last season, he kind of becomes a check down Charlie, a guy that is asked to hand the ball off, don't turn it over, we're going to punt if we need to. It has to be tough, but the fact that he was able to do it, I have to tip my hat to him because I didn't think that he would be able to keep it under wraps and lead them to a Super Bowl as a game manager, as opposed to being the primary force of the driving force of that offense.
The way I look at it is that the goal for every player and every team in the NFL is to win the Oscar, right?
Yep.
So that's what you want, is that trophy. Well, he got he was a leading role in the first Oscar. The second one, he was very much a supporting actor. But at the end of the day, he's got 2 trophies.
He has 2. And as we get farther removed from it, people won't remember that he had to morph and change his game. He'll get credit for being a guy that led his teams to 4 Super Bowls, and he won 2 of those. And I think that's the big thing that everyone would take away from him. He led the Indianapolis Colts to the Super Bowl on his own, determination, drive, his own talent, being able to make it an offense first appearance to the Super Bowl. And then in Denver, the first time it was due to the offense. The second time he was able to take a back seat and let that defense carry him to a title. Says a lot about his maturity, his growth, and his ability to keep his ego in check.
All right, I mentioned at the top we're going to discuss some scouting takeaways, what we can learn from Peyton Manning and his career. So let's come up with 3 of them here, Bucky. I'll give you the floor here for the first scouting takeaway. What can we all learn when evaluating quarterbacks from Peyton Manning?
You got to love it. You have to love the game. You have to love all of it. I believe, and not only watching his press conference, I thought it was very apparent how he talked about how much he loved.
You got choked up talking
football.
about the game.
Loved football, loved the preparation part, loved the dirty work, the film work, doing all the other stuff to give yourself a chance to play your best game on each and every Sunday. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read MMQB, and Tom Brady was talking about what he learned from Peyton Manning. And he talked about that being a quarterback is a 24/7, 365 deal. You have to always be consumed about being the best quarterback in the National Football League, being able to put yourself in the best position. I think some guys don't buy into that principle, but you cannot be a great quarterback in this league being a 9-to-5 guy.
No question. And I think when you go to schools and you're scouting players, that's one of the reasons why you need to go talk to the film guy and find out how much time he's spending at the facility watching extra tape. Talk to the coaches. How much extra time is he spending in the coaching office? Because showing up for practice and showing up for your meetings, it doesn't get it. That ain't enough at that position. You got to go well above and beyond that to be successful. And I think that's one of the things we learned from Peyton Manning. Number 2 on that list was the leadership skills. Being able to get everybody around you to buy into that. Being able to not be a loner, but to be able to interact with everybody on the football team and raise their standard up. I think that's what Peyton Manning did. Your best player has to be your hardest worker if you want to have a great team. And then you have to, okay, this is what this guy's doing. I got to emulate that.
He absolutely set the tone for the team because he was the hardest worker. He was diligent in the way he approached the game, the way he took people to task on the field. He wanted the extra reps, took every rep. It's legendary in terms of how he took every rep in practice, wanted all those reps, wanted to fully be prepared to play at his best when his best was required. And knowing his center for a long time, Jeff Saturday, we played together at North Carolina, and having the opportunity to talk to him about Peyton Manning in the past, he talked about the guy is a man's man. He's a guy that can hang out with any faction of the locker room. He didn't separate himself, even though everyone knew that 18 was a special player. He really was able to bring everybody together. He was inclusive rather than exclusive, and because of that, I think young players, and particularly quarterbacks, can learn that you have to involve all the team. Even though we talk about the game being a quarterback-driven game, it takes everybody pulling the boat in the same direction to win a championship.
All right, number 3 on the list, Bucky, and this is something that's it's easy to say and it seems common sense, but it's easy to get enticed by the arm strength, the big arm guys. Peyton Manning, another example, accuracy over arm strength.
Accuracy over arm strength, being able to throw with touch, timing, anticipation, put the ball in the strike zone. Look, we didn't see it at the end of his career, but for the overwhelming majority of his career, he could throw wide receivers open. And look, he didn't have the strongest arm. If you look at his deep ball, I believe he was the guy that mastered the art of getting it up and out. On those deep balls, his balls came out early, they came out high, and he allowed his wide receivers to run up under it. Even though he didn't have the deep ball range of some of the likes of a Jeff George or a Brett Favre, he was still able to utilize every area of the field because he understood how to throw the ball with accuracy and precision.
One of the things that was so unique about him is I've never seen a guy be able to control a loose ball like Peyton Manning does. Because normally the ball gets loose, you're not throwing a tight spiral, it's going to flutter, it's going to get away from you. He could place the ball so accurately, even if the ball was a little bit loose, had a little bit of a flutter to it. That was very unique to Peyton Manning.
You know, when I first entered the league, they talked about those windows are really, really small for quarterbacks, but that's why they pay him $20 million to put it on an exact spot on your body away from the defender. Peyton Manning had that ability to do that. We saw for so long. Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, those guys rarely took big shots because he had the ability to throw the ball away from the coverage. There's a skill in that, and as we look at these young quarterbacks coming in, we see how erratic the ball placement can be. Peyton Manning is special because he understood how to throw the ball with touch, timing, and trajectory.
All right, well, two big players, two all-time greats there. Calvin Johnson and Peyton Manning call it a career. I believe we'll see them both. I think it's, 2021 Hall of Fame, first ballot?
It's going to be loaded.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. All right.
Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning.
Yeah, it's a nice group.
Yeah.
Let's move on now, Buck. Free agency is getting ready to kick off here. We have this, what do they call it, legal tampering period. So which doesn't make any sense.
We can talk. We can speed date.
You can't sign anything.
Just can't sign anything.
Well, the Oakland Raiders allegedly, according to, I think it was our Rand Getlin that reported this, have an agreement with Kelechi Osemele from the Baltimore Ravens to come in, who I think is one of the better interior offensive linemen in the league. And this, real quick, Buck, this is fascinating to me because this Oakland team, you want to build around your quarterback.
Yeah.
Rodney Hudson last year, right? They drafted Gabe Jackson a couple years ago. He was a really, really good interior player. Now you make a very sizable investment in Osemele. They've got now the nucleus in front of him to not only keep him upright and keep him healthy, but they should be able to pound people in the run game and help your young quarterback as well.
It would be interesting to see how the Raiders elect to go on draft day because you talk about building that monster up front. They have a front line. They have a wall up front. Well, somebody's making $11 million per year, so that's a sizable investment to make sure that you have that front line, that wall to protect the quarterback. But in playing football, and we're seeing the running game is very key to playing great defense because it limits the exposure. What does Oakland do in the running back position? Do they believe Latavius Murray's a guy that can really be that guy to sustain them, or do they surprise everybody and maybe they take a running back sooner than most imagine?
There's talk they might jump in on Doug Martin now too.
Especially if some of those guys are available, be it free agency, be it in the draft. Can they get a guy that is a bell cow? I'm talking about an upper echelon running back. I know Murray went to the Pro Bowl, but I'm talking about a real dude, someone that people fear, someone they feel like they need to put 8 in the box. Because now if you're able to find that one player that can create an 8 in the box situation, Amari Cooper on the outside,
good for him.
Other weapons that they have assembled on the perimeter makes life easier for Derek Carr.
All right, we're going to have all your free agency needs covered here on Move the Sticks as we march through free agency. We'll be updating you. We have a new audio podcast that will be up in the next day or so we'll keep up to date with all that stuff. But I wanted to focus right now, Bucky, on what we got here. We got 4 teams that we believe are just a couple pieces away from being a championship football team. So when we look at the combination of free agency and the draft, they might be able to fill those needs and get them over the hump. So I thought we'd just kind of go through them and identify what those needs might be, Bucky, and some players that could fit for them here. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers? When we look at their situation and what they need, Buck, I mean, I think if they could add a big-time corner, and I know they have Jesse James. They got some solid tight ends, but nobody that gets me overly excited. If you added a big-time tight end or a really good tight end into that mix of receivers that they have, and Lev Bell comes back healthy, good luck stopping that offense.
Offensively, they have everything that you want. They have a crew of wide receivers that can hurt you. Marcus Wheaton, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, even DHB, Darius Haywood-Bay. They make plays on the perimeter. Lev Bell is arguably the best running back in football. You have a quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger who understands how to get the team to the winner's circle. If you add a middle-of-the-field piece, a guy that can control the middle of the field on third down and in the red zone, maybe it's Jesse James. Maybe it's going outside and finding another tight end that can.
Maybe it's Austin Hooper from Stanford there in round number 2.
I mean, it makes it very, very difficult to stop that offense. But I'll talk about the defense and the transformation that they're trying to make. They're trying to go from being a team that was a zone blitz team, a team that plays from man-to-man, to a team that is playing the traditional Tampa 2 that Mike Tomlin is very, very comfortable with. To do that, you have to have guys who have great eyes, great ball skills, so they can get those interceptions off tips and overthrows. In the draft, to me, the guy that would be perfect for them is an Eli Apple or even a William Jackson III because of the size, the length, being able to jam and funnel and get back and play the ball with vision. Those guys would be ideal fits in that defense.
I like what you're thinking. I think both those guys would fit in very well with the Steelers. You agree with me, though? They're just a couple pieces away. They need to stay healthy.
A couple pieces. If Lev Bell stays healthy, they put them right there on the doorstep of winning.
All right, let's move on to another team now. The Seattle Seahawks, coming off of a playoff loss to the Carolina Panthers, but this team in the previous 2 Super Bowls has some needs to look at here. I think if you go offense and defensive tackle with this football team, they're right back in the mix.
Absolutely. They have to control the trenches. I know they've been trying to experiment. Tom Cable's been fascinated by trying to convert defensive players, defensive linemen into offensive players, offensive linemen, and have success in the running game. But at some point, I think they need to invest in the quality up front. Find some guys that can help them move people off the ball, get back to run the ball. Without Marshawn Lynch there, this team could become Russell Wilson's team in terms of a little more pass-first premise. So if we're going to put Russell and drop him back 30 to 35 times, I need to make sure the edges are protected. So at where they're picking, first round, second round, you're talking about some of those guys, maybe Taylor Decker is somehow there. Maybe you have to take a chance on a Jason Spriggs or your guy, Fetty.
Yep.
They have to find some guys that can protect on the outside because Russell Okung is a free agent.
Yeah, no, I think if Fetty would make some sense for there from Texas A&M on the offensive line. They did just re-sign Ataba Rubin, who's one of my favorite players. I was there in Cleveland when we picked him in the 6th round. He's turned into be a really, really solid player with them. So I thought that was a good signing on the defensive tackle position. Because of the depth in this draft, Bucky, they could get a stud defensive lineman at 26. I don't know if it's out of the realm of possibility. They could get an Ashawn Robinson. Maybe a Jaron Reed falls down there. You know, if you want somebody a little bit more athletic, a little more wiggle upfield, I don't know that Sheldon Rankins will be there, but that's another name that could be in the mix there. I mean, it's a loaded D-line group. How about Vernon Butler from Louisiana Tech could be an option?
It's a loaded class, but the guy that I would say is the wild card of that class and who could be very well available at 26.
You're going to go Kim Dichie on me?
I'm going to go Kim Dichie. And the reason I would say Kim Dichie could be a good fit in that program, Pete Carroll is fascinated by the top high school recruits in the country. He does a great job of getting guys in the building. They'll tell you, bring us the best athletes and we can coach them up. I think there's no doubting his athleticism and what he physically can do. You would like to see him play with a better motor. You have to answer questions about his character. But when you look at the culture of that locker room and the different personalities that they have, I believe he could be a great fit there. And I believe they are one of the few teams that could probably maximize his talent and potential as a potential dominant player.
All right, this sounds weird to say this because they pick 4th in the draft to say a team's only a couple pieces away.
Yeah.
But the Dallas Cowboys, because of the injury to Tony Romo, if they can keep him healthy, that makes them a whole lot better football team. And now you look at a couple pieces they could add. How about a running back to finally replace DeMarco Murray and then add another corner?
You know, running back, I believe that's going to be the biggest debate for them in the draft room. At pick 4, do we invest in a running back that we feel like we can strap the saddle to him and allow him to go? Ezekiel Elliott could be the ideal fit behind that offense. He's a special player. We saw the ability that he had to take Ohio State to the national championship game by really doing it, putting it on his back and allowing him to be the focal point of the offense. Just a year ago, we saw DeMarco Murray have 1,800 yards behind that offensive line. The offensive line hasn't changed. They're even more effective, I think, with La'el Collins up front. You get a dominant, a dynamic runner behind those guys. I believe Ezekiel Elliott could help the Cowboys get right back into contention, and they can play the solid play that I believe is conducive to them winning 11 and 12 games a year.
We should probably mention edge rusher as well because you don't know what you're ever going to get from Randy Gregory. You're probably going to I think we've seen the end of Greg Hardy there in Dallas. So I like DeMarcus Lawrence, but maybe getting somebody to pair him up with, whether or not you buy into Joey Bosa at pick number 4. I personally would be okay with it. I know some people, it seems like his stock has started to fall off with some folks, but adding another edge rusher could be in that mix as well.
You know, I think the big decision you have to make on Greg Hardy, I know people have taken him to task, but when we watch them and talking to some of the people inside their building, they believe he commanded a lot of attention, made it really easy for DeMarcus Lawrence to face one-on-ones. In fact, according to their calculations, I think they said that he faced more one-on-ones than any other defensive end in the league. And so if you're able to find a way to get Greg Hardy to buy into whatever the culture is in that locker room, it does free you to take a Joey Bosa, but maybe you don't use Bosa primarily as a defensive end. Maybe he plays kind of that jack-of-all-trades type player. We can come in, kick inside, play your 3 technique. They like to play with smaller under tackles who have athleticism and hand skills. He certainly has that, and we know he plays with an active motor. Can you imagine Rod Marinelli taking a guy like that and really adding something to his game? I believe if they go that route and take Joey Bosa but keep Greg Hardy, that defense, particularly the front line, could be a dominant unit again.
All right, let's do it real quick here before we move on to the Green Bay Packers. So the phone call comes. You be Jerry Jones. Call me. I'm Joey Bosa. You just picked me with the 4th pick. Go ahead.
I'm calling you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, can I speak to Joey Bosa?
This is Joey.
Joey, it's Jerry Jones with the Dallas Cowboys. How you feel? Do you want to be a part of America's team?
Sure.
Wow, we really appreciate the enthusiasm. We're really going to build this marketing campaign around you being one of our guys. You could be the next one to wear the star on the helmet and be our guy. Look, you saw what DeMarcus Ware was able to do, some of the other great players. Are you ready to be a Cowboy?
Yes.
All right,
All right, good talk. All right,
that's we'll talk to you and get all that worked out.
That's my Joey Bosa. All right, let's move on now to the Green Bay Packers, Buck, and what they could be looking at to try and help them get over the hump. I think the linebacker position, you get some flexibility there with Clay Matthews because he can play in and out. I like to see them get a big-time inside linebacker and let Clay be full-time outside again where he can wreak havoc off the edge. And then you look at the offensive line. Obviously, we saw them get exposed a little bit up front last year.
They did get exposed up front, but I'm going to turn my attention to the defense. I do believe they have to make a decision on what you want to do with Clay Matthews. Clay Matthews has volunteered and played inside, but I think it's been to his detriment. I don't think he's nearly as effective playing in the box, in between the tackles, having to roam and chase. I want to put him on the edges. I still want to use he and Julius Peppers to come off the edge. Nick Perry also being able to rush. Find a big guy like a Reggie Ragland. If Reggie Ragland somehow falls down the charts, is sitting in there, he can be my traffic cop. He can give us a stout presence inside. Shore up the interior against the run and allow Clay Matthews and some of those other guys to hunt the quarterback on obvious passing downs.
Yeah, and then we look at the offensive line. Look, I remember what was against Arizona last year where they gave up 9 or 10 sacks in one of those early meetings. Could not block anybody. And so you look at where they're picking down there at pick number 27, kind of the same names we mentioned when we were talking about the Seahawks, right? I mean, you got Ifedi. Do you want to take Spriggs as a tackle? You've got
hopefully Taylor Decker maybe falls or something like that.
I think Ryan Kelly can play guard too from Alabama. I really like him. They don't need him at center; they're set there. But I think he could come in and play some guard if you wanted him to do that as well.
They have to shore up the front line. They have to find a way to get better, and I believe they need to get better at being able to create a push at the line of scrimmage so they can run the football. When the Packers were good, when they really make runs, it's because they're balanced. They're able to run the ball. I know we have to get Eddie Lacy in shape, but we need to be able to create, push, and really establish our presence on the other side of the line of scrimmage to allow us to run the football relentlessly to make it easy for Aaron Rodgers to take shots down the field.
All right, Buck, that's a couple moves away for those teams. Let's move on now to our top 50s. We both crank out top 50s. We've got some changes here on our list. I thought we'd just roll through some of these names here real quick that have made some moves. Devontae Booker, for me.
Quickly, before you
go ahead.
Start that, because I know a lot of people, like when we do radio calls or interviews or even on Twitter, they talk about the dropping and mock drafts. Explain why big boards matter more than mock drafts from a scout's perspective.
Well, sure. I mean, to me, it's mock drafts all off what I hear, and then we get to the top 50 list, it's all about what I see. So what I hear varies and changes. But like a guy like Devontae Booker back here, to me, he enters into my top 50 list, not because he did anything at the Combine. He didn't even work out at the Combine. He's coming off of an injury. I hadn't got a chance to really study him. So I finally got my report in on him and finished him up. So I put him in his first movement here in my list. He's number 37. But people say, how could he move up? Well, I watched him. And when I studied him, I got a chance to mix him in with my other guys, and that's where I have him coming in.
It's funny because he didn't work out at the Combine. He was a guy on my first version of the big board. I had him right at 50. I believe he's one of the talented players. I believe he's really a sleeper, a guy that can do a lot of things for an offense. Kind of reminds me of Arian Foster in the way that he plays. Kind of smooth, same speed, but he can run inside, outside, can catch the ball out the backfield.
Got some anger to him.
He does have some violence.
That.
And look, he carried that offense, and so he's a workhorse back. I don't have him ranked, but I absolutely believe he'll come off the board sometime in the second round.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. This one we're a little bit split on here. Emmanuel Ogbah, I ended up putting him in my top 50 for the first time. He comes in at number 46 for me. He make a strong case. He's one of the stars of the Combine when you look at his numbers that he put up. Ran really fast. You see the vertical jump there as well. To me, he's somebody that's difficult to do on tape because there's lots of stretches where you don't see him do a whole lot. He's got some stiffness to him. He'll play a little bit high. But then you see some of that get off, and you'll see some of that power to be able to work through half a guy and get to the quarterback.
Absolutely. The big thing with Ogbah is he's a straight line power rusher. And he takes you right down the middle. He bull rushes. He forklifts you. He doesn't have a lot of finesse in his game. And so he just overpowers you with his sheer brute force, his sheer strength and power, and his ability to play with a relentless motor when he's revved up. The thing why I may be a little more encouraged is I saw teams start to move their players around and put those top pass rushers
Go get some
on
right
the right
tackles.
on the right tackle side. Yeah. And so when I look at a guy like a Khalil Mack who plays with sheer power and force and has the ability to run over and hit 15 sacks by being able to take people right down the middle, I don't see why Emmanuel Ogbah couldn't be a double-digit sack guy, even though his game is a little more limited in terms of the lack of finesse. It's just all fastballs, all power, all the time.
By the way, real quick, when I finish up edge rushes, I'll watch 3 or 4 games, and I like to go watch their sack tape. We have the capability to be able to sort all their statistics and watch those plays in a cut-up immediately. So I sort his sack tape. Man, Kansas and Iowa State, not good up front against old Emmanuel there.
No.
I mean, and the funny thing is, as you go through and watch all these guys, a lot of times it's those same teams getting beat over and over again.
Same teams, they expose them. The number of pass rushes and defense tackles coming from the Big 12, so we see those guys that get exposed. Emmanuel Ogbah is a guy that certainly doubted up against those teams. But when he tested like he tested, I can see in the room, we know how coaches get. When coaches see those numbers come across their desk,
they jump on them.
And they see the production on paper, I can get it out this guy. I think Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be one of those guys. He may be a bit of an enigma, but coaches will fall in love with him because of what he brings to the table physically.
All right, let's roll through these last 2 quick here. Paxton Lynch, I dropped him down a little, but I think I had him 22. He's 28 for me. You've got him at 42, Bucky.
I dropped him from 31 to 42.
Yeah, so you had a pretty significant drop there. To me, look, the size is great. He maybe ran a little bit slower than we thought. You thought his size-speed combination was what made him so interesting as an athlete. He's a really good athlete, good runner at the quarterback position. I thought just watching him through the drops, I thought his feet were real slow. I mean, that was a little bit concerning to me.
Yeah, I had the same concerns, and I've compared him to Ryan Tannehill, not necessarily from the physical dimension, but in terms of their style of play and also the learning curve that I think he will experience at the next level. It has taken Ryan Tannehill a while to kind of settle into the role as the quarterback, and particularly the franchise quarterback, and he's still a work in progress. I believe Paxton Lynch has tremendous physical tools, but it's going to take him some time to find his way into the league unless he plays under a creative offensive coordinator that puts a lot of the things in that they did at Memphis. He has some stuff to prove in the pro day and the rest of the circuit for me to kind of move him back up into that consideration as a borderline first-round talent.
All right, one of the toughest players for me to figure out, Eli Apple from Ohio State. And I've talked about this before. I watched the end of the season, right? The last 2 games, go to his bowl game, outstanding. Put a big grade on him. I think I had him as my 14th overall player. So then I go back and I end up watching earlier in the season, and he struggles, gives up a lot of plays, struggles to find the football. So I dropped him down pretty significantly. I think high 20s, around 30. And then you go to the combine. I thought he would probably run in the 4.5s. He ran much faster than that in the 4.4s. And I've kind of just split the difference, and I've settled in. He's number 23 for me on my list. But one of those guys that everything's trending in the right direction. I just don't have a great feel for him.
No, I mean, I think he can be a tough evaluation because when you see him on the perimeter, you like a lot of things. I like the size. I like the length. I like the competitiveness on the edge. He'll tackle. He'll compete against guys. You do see people slip past him on occasion. I believe he's probably better served to play in a zone-based system that allows him to jam like a cover 2 system, jam and funnel, get his eyes back to the quarterback, make some plays with his length and his reaction time. Solid player. Am I ready to anoint him as one of those elite prospects at the position, a guy that can kind of change the fortunes of the franchise by being a lockdown corner? No, but in the right system, he could be a solid number 1 in a team that employs a lot of zone looks that allows him to keep his eyes on the quarterback.
All right, Bucky, let's take a peek at this week's Pro Day schedule and what we've got coming up. And these will be Pro Days we'll recap next week on the show. We got some big ones coming up. Oklahoma State, we talked about Ogbah. That's today, March 8th, as we're recording this. Then we've got Alabama and Oklahoma on the 9th. Then we've got Clemson, a big one there. We'll get to that in just a second. Clemson, Illinois, Mississippi State on the 10th, and then a big one, Ohio State, which we will have covered here on NFL Network. The Alabama one as well we'll have you covered here. You can tune into NFL Network and check it out. But let's go to March 10th real quick. Clemson, Buck, why is that such a big one?
Mackenzie Alexander. Mackenzie Alexander, like there are other guys too, like Shaq Lawson, Kevin Dodds. I would think Sharon Peake is going to be a guy that intrigues people as kind of one of those sleeper picks, maybe at the back end of day 2.
DJ Reader, defensive line.
Yeah, so they have some
safeties.
Guys.
Yeah.
But everyone is going to have their eyes on Mackenzie Alexander, especially after he talks so much at the Combine about being the best cover corner in the draft. Boldly proclaiming how he prepared and doing those things or whatever, but then hearing from coaches that he didn't necessarily interview well. So I go back and I watch the tape again. I watched 4 more tapes of him, and he's a bit of a one-dimensional player, a bump and run guy, a guy that bails on occasion, but you rarely see him backpedal. He squats on a lot of routes. So he could be a boom or bust prospect on the edge because I just don't know what his fundamentals are like, and does he have enough fundamentals to be a guy that is scheme diverse. So at his pro day, not only will we have to do the battery athletic testing, position coaches want to see where he's at in his development. It's going to be a long day for him in terms of how guys work him out. I would expect him to do a lot of W drills, a lot of turns and transitions, a lot of things that really put him on the grinders to display the footwork and the lateral quickness and some of the other things we need to see from our top corners.
All right, 40. I think I lost, by the way. We did some 40.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I think I lost on some, but I'm gonna try and get it back right now. So I'm gonna put Mackenzie Alexander, 4.53. You go higher or lower, Buck?
I'm gonna go higher.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna say that he's
TD, producer TD. Keep track of these. Will you write these down?
On it.
Don't keep track of the ones we did previously.
If it was
track of those.
If it was official and it was electronic at the combine, I'm pretty confident it would be about 4.55.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's fair.
I got a question for you guys. Speaking about pro days.
Yeah.
What's the difference between scouting at the combine and scouting at the pro day?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the difference is, first of all, we throw the electronic stuff out. You're all on your own there. The difference also is that once all the same testing is done, you're going to do the same, 40 vertical bench, all the stuff that they do at the combine. But then it's really the workout portion is in the hands of the scouts. If there's no position coaches there to work guys out, we will put them through whatever workouts we want to put them through, and you can get to see some stuff. Man, if you worry about Mackenzie Alexander, ball skills, playing the ball, we haven't seen a lot of that. You might have him do 3 or 4 different ball drills instead of just the 1 or 2 that you might with a normal pro day.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about a pro day is you go to get specific answers to some of the pressing questions that you have to get addressed before you go into those final meetings. For a Mackenzie Alexander, I talk about his ability or inability to backpedal. I'm going to put them through a full gamut of backpedal drills. I'm going to make him turn in transition. He's going to have to catch a lot of balls. I may really challenge him in terms of his ball skills. Can he track it? Can he catch it from afar? Can he make breaks? Part of the appeal of a pro day is to go there and to be able to take him through things that you need to see specifically for your system. That's why you see so many position coaches there, because if they can develop a comfort level with his skills, they can give him the thumbs up that will allow him to kind of pass through and be a guy that you say, we'll target him at this specific round value.
And more recently, over the last handful of years, you not only have the pro day, there's so many more private workouts. A lot of these teams aren't even sending many guys to pro days because they're going to go out on their private plane, and they're going to go out and they're going to hit 3 or 4 different prospects. They're going to pop that plane down all over a region, and they're going to do workouts with their coaches one-on-one with these guys.
Away from everyone else. So
nobody else can see it. And you're not only going to test how he works out, but they're going to test him mentally.
Yep.
They'll give him some information to swallow the night before, and they're going to show up at the pro day and see if he's got it. So, I mean, that to me is where this thing's kind of headed. It's an expensive way to do it, but it's also very valuable to get that one-on-one time.
Especially when we're so limited in terms of how often or how long we can talk with these prospects, being able to do the private workouts, because normally you schedule a dinner either pre or post. So now we get to spend more time when we get to sit down, we get to pick his brain, we get to learn more about his character and how he thinks, how he functions, what he may be like in terms of fitting into our culture. Then we work him out the next day. We get to see how he's prepared. Is he in shape? Does he have the tools and techniques that we want? Can he learn the tools and techniques that we may implement right on the fly? Being able to assess all of those things and the learning is important when it comes to making the evaluation. To me, I believe that is why the private workouts are now skewing in favor of those pro day workouts where everyone can kind of see what you're testing the guy on.
All right, real quick, Bucky, here. I'm going to test you. When we always ask players when you go to pro days, do you have any private workouts set up? And they will normally tell you. So I'm going to tell you an answer from a player. You fill in the blank. When I ask a player, who are you doing a private workout with, and they say, I got to work with the Falcons, the Panthers, the Chargers, the Raiders, and a team that said I'm not allowed to tell you who they are. Who's that team?
Oh, that's probably the New England Patriots.
Boom. Yeah, it's every time. Every time. We're like, dude, they're the only team that says that. We know it's the Patriots, and I'm not allowed to say, sir. I'm not allowed to say. All right, whatever. We know it's the Patriots. Let's move on now, Buck, before we wrap up for the day. Red Stars. I've explained it in the past about what we did in Baltimore and Cleveland when I was there with red star and a black dot, right? Each scout gets one of each. You get to go up to the board where you have all the magnets of all the players, And it give you 1 red star. Really, it was just 1 for the whole board, and you could do it. But we're going to break this down and do it for each position. But what the red star says is, now I'm not saying this guy is the best player at his position. I'm not saying he's the best player in the draft. I'm not saying he's a top 3-round pick. What I am saying is I like him. I'd like him to be on our football team at some point in time during the draft. I believe in him. It's my way of saying I'm putting my name on this player with the red star. Now, conversely, the black dot is you're saying no matter what, I don't care how good this guy is, I don't want him in here. We'll leave the black dot alone. We're going to be positive here on Moving the Sticks.
All positive.
I thought what we do is over these next course of videos here is that we go position by position and just say who we'd put our red star on. Again, not saying he's the best guy, but just saying somebody that we would want on our football team. And let's start at the quarterback position. The floor is yours.
The floor is mine. I'm going to put a red star. And this is tough because at the quarterback position, there are a lot of guys that I like. But in terms of finding a guy that I believe is going to find a way to make it and have success, I'm going to go out on a limb because this guy's character has been tarnished. He's been talked about. He's one of the more polarizing prospects in the draft. Connor Cook from Michigan State is going to be the guy that I put the red star on. I'm going to stamp my name on it. And the reason I'm really willing to endorse Connor Cook, look, the guy has a ton of wins at a university that has produced starting quarterbacks and quarterbacks that have played for a long time in our league. Kirk Cousins supplants Robert Griffin III. Brian Hoyer, regardless of what you think, he's played for a long time in the league. Drew Stanton is playing in the league. Connor Cook has more wins than any of those guys doing his collegiate career. He played in a pro-style offense. It's easy to see his ability translate to the Sunday game, even though there's some things that I don't like some of the accuracy issues, questions about some of the leadership stuff. I just don't believe that you can win that many games and not have the stuff, the secret sauce to allow you to have success as a pro.
Buck, they did.
How about that? I sold that.
They didn't do you a lot of favors with the tape they cut up for you, man.
No, that's okay.
They a couple nice touch throws, but
that's who he is, though.
Yeah, the range of motion, though. I'm not seeing that.
Well, I think he's still coming
off that. I can see that.
Shoulders,
I just didn't see the full range of motion you want to see on a motion right there. But no, he is a very polarizing player. I like Connor Cook. I have him as my 4th quarterback in this draft class. I think he's more of a middle late second for me.
That's funny. I gave him, when I first looked at him at the end of the fall, I gave him a 7.1, which is right at the bottom, is right on the line of the first round. And I liken him to Carson Palmer because I remember going to USC multiple times during Carson Palmer's senior year, and he was a little up and down until he got hot and rolled to the Heisman Trophy. I believe that with coaching and with development, Connor Cook could be that kind of quarterback in the league.
That throw we just saw 2 throws ago against Stanford, to me it looked like he had a little more elasticity in his motion right there than he did in the combine. I'm going to go my red star, a guy that I've talked about before, Brandon Allen from Arkansas, the quarterback. Now I know he's a little bit undersized. We've been through the deal with his hand size. He doesn't have. He
stretched him out.
He did get a little bit bigger, got some massage, and they're better now. But I just think when I watch him, you want to watch him against Ole Miss and Mississippi State. He shreds both those teams.
Yes.
And you see him hang in the pocket. You see him move around inside the pocket. You see him deliver the ball with anticipation, timing, and touch, which we've talked about a little bit earlier as being key at that position. And I like the fact that, man, this guy struggled early on in his career. They were like, doing crap to his car there in Fayetteville. Didn't transfer, stuck it out, ended up finding a way to win a lot of football games for this team. So that shows me he's got some mental toughness to go along with that physical toughness. And then the game at the Senior Bowl. The week of practice was okay, but then you get to the game, and he played really, really well in that game. So I like him. I don't know when he's going to go. I could see him being a 3rd, 4th-round pick. Maybe he goes later than that. He's somebody I want on my football team. I think he's going to be a great 2. That in the right situation and opportunity could develop and be a starter eventually.
It's funny because it's a different university, but I will say this. Brett Bielema has sent multiple quarterbacks to the league when he was at Wisconsin. Now, Arkansas, this would be his first foray in terms of producing a guy. Those guys understood the big picture. They understand how to manage the game in terms of situational football, and they find a way to get it done. I think about Jim Sorgi and some of the other guys, Scott Tolzien, that have been able to kind of carve out a little niche in the league as backups. Brandon Allen certainly can do it. You talk about the teams that he diced up. Ole Miss. I saw that Mississippi State game where he and Dak Prescott engaged in a shootout. I could absolutely see him have success. I'm concerned about the size and the hand size in particular, but when you look at the tape and you look at the production, it matches, and it's not artificial. It's not enhanced by a bunch of bubble screens and the like. He's making big boy throws, and so he certainly could be a guy that finds a way to make it in the league.
Can I make my call here? Rack this tape here, producer TD. We need to save this because if the 1 in a million chance this really happens, I want to just make me look smart.
Yep.
third, fourth round. Who picks him?
Who?
The Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones, the Arkansas man,
the Arkansas
goes and gets his
alum?
Arkansas quarterback, and now when Tony Romo has to miss some time, he's going to be a heck of a lot better than what they played with last year with Romo out. I promise you that.
They can't play with Kellen Moore anymore. They need to have a guy. I can't see that. We all favor our universities, and he's an alum of Arkansas. I can see him having a bit of cachet with that. Like, I would like Tar Heels. Like, if I could get a thing behind the glass, if I could put all Tar Heels, not hating, but if I could put some Tar Heels back there, I certainly would put some Tar Heels back there.
By the way, I'm glad the camera's not on me when TD jumps in my ear like that. He comes in so hot, it's like I'm at a haunted house, man. I just jump up in the air, man. Goodness gracious, TD.
My bad.
All right, we want to get your answers on this, by the way. Who would be your red star at the quarterback position? You can leave it in the comment section below.
Can we get a hashtag? Can we get a hashtag or something like that?
Hashtag red star?
Move the sticks, at Bucky Brooks. Also, YouTube comments. Let us know whether it's Calvin ranking your all-time wide receiver rankings, Peyton Manning legacy. Let us know all that stuff, man. Comments, Twitter. We're here, man.
I'm a little bit worried if we go hashtag red star, we have like some Russian hockey.
Yeah, hashtag red star. Let me know who your guy is. Who's the guy you're willing to hang your hat on?
Yeah, and
your job is on the line, TD. Who you rolling with? That's what we need to know.
We got some big plans coming up on Move the Sticks, by the way. Be sure to stay with us. Video number 100 is now in the books.
100.
We are 100 in, and we got at least 5 more to go. No, we're going to try and get a couple hundred more coming your way. But you can check out the Move the Sticks podcast in audio form on iTunes as well as NFL.com/podcasts, and stay with us here on YouTube. We appreciate it.
Thanks for downloading Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. For more, go to NFL.com/podcasts.